Now, the Indian components industry of late has, in fact, also been climbing out of the sort of a trough that the whole auto industry finds itself in. But in general, Indian engineering talent, even in the component space, and of course the pricing formula as well that some of the component players throw up, that's also another winning combination that has seen a lot of them doing a lot of interesting work. Now, large OEMs are here in India as well, the manufacturers, which means large orders for the components industry. The reason I'm talking about all of this is because we never show you this side of the industry on our show, but we are going to do that today. We are in fact here in Pune, so we decided to also step across to Tata Autocom. The reason we picked Tata Autocom is because that's one company that also comprises a group of companies, and they do different kinds of components. So we thought we'll give you a little glimpse of how components are made. That's something new for us, and it's certainly something new for you as well.
A large part of car, bike or truck manufacturing today, hang on, even three-wheelers and tractors, is essentially putting together a bunch of components, assembling them if you will, into the metal shell. So a large part of the manufacturing, so to speak, is done at the supplier end. So today we thought we'll take you into this world, a different end of the automobile, to show you how the magic happens. We're starting off in the Tata Autocom Plastics division. Door panels, dashboards, small plastic moldings, all made here. And we begin at the raw material end of the line, which is where the polypropylene is first melted for use in the panel.
Now, we do tend to take most of the manufacturing process when it comes to automobiles for granted. I mean, who thought that the dashboard of your car, the door panel, started out as simple beads of plastic like this? So it's as simple as that, really, because this machine here simply sucks in these beads, melts them down, and then pressure injects them into the mold, which eventually leads to a part like this. This, of course, being the dash of the Indica. And then these guys over here are just simply finishing it off, just making sure there are no rough edges, no extra bits of plastic hanging on. And then, of course, the part moves on for further assembling. So the point I'm trying to make, though, is that you see different colors of plastic. The Ritz has blue, you've got beige, black, grey. All of that simply depends on your raw material. And also, of course, the quality of plastic determines just how nice the part comes out at the other end. So different segments use different quality of plastic.
So the same process can be used to make more different shaped panels and also different consistency of plastics and different textures too. It all depends on the raw material quality and also the kind of mold used. So what you're seeing here are door panels for the Indica Vista, all happening in a matter of minutes. In fact, most component makers will base themselves in the proximity of the customer they supply to, even if it means having multiple plants in different locations to make the same component. So the plant we're in primarily supplies to Tata Motors and Fiat since they're in the Pune area. But it's not just the basic plastic panels. They can also be given special treatments to alter the texture or to add certain detail, and now newer technology allows better aesthetics too.
Now, that is essentially a laser scoring machine. It's something new that we're seeing now more and more. The idea? Well, very simply, you have a dashboard of any car and you always have these little markings that say SRS airbag, but you also always see a little bit of an outline or an edge. So you know that's the panel that's going to pop out in case of an accident when the airbag actually deploys. Now, what you're seeing here is the same etching, but there is no real sort of marking or any kind of an edge that's been defined. So you get a nice smooth dash, unlike what most cars have. But flip it around and you can see that's the laser scoring. What it does is it actually etches out that particular panel from the underneath, which means that the airbag will still deploy exactly how it's supposed to, but you get a nice unfinished dash, which looks a whole lot prettier.
Pretty neat indeed, and a better looking dash finish for sure. Better than those ugly outlines, eh? In fact, speaking of better looks, the other thing that's changed significantly is how the plastics feel too. And so you actually have a machine that can also add a layer over the basic dash to give it a different feel to the original plastic.
So the part that he's finishing off is similar to this one. It's essentially the cover of the glove box from the Aria. Now, of course, the color, the plum, tells you that it's the Aria. And the reason I wanted to show you this is because very often during a car review, I always jab the dash and say, look, it has a bit of a spongy, soft touch kind of a feel. Well, now you know how that's achieved.
So a spongy feel vinyl is actually stuck on and then fixed at a higher temperature. You can also achieve different textures on the same panel this way. To further explain the importance of why it is essential to be close to a car or bike plant, let's go to where the final assembly of the dash is happening.
What you're seeing on these computer screens is a live order book of sorts. Over the internet, real-time information coming through from the Tata Motors plant, which is just about 2 kilometers down the road. Now, it's not the proximity that I'm trying to indicate here as being important. It's what's happening here at the TACO plant that's very interesting. At most auto manufacturers, you find that the supplier who sends in, let's say, the dash unit, will send in just the dash unit. And then, at the car plant is when all the bits go into it. What you're seeing here is a finished cockpit. And so it's something that they call just in sequence, which means that on that computer you see which particular car, which variant, which color, which model, what shell has just gone from the paint shop onto the assembly line. And it's for that particular car that the cockpit gets assembled right here in sequence and in time. So by the time they put this together and send it across 2 kilometers down the road, it will be just in time to go straight into that car so that it cuts down on warehousing costs and things like that. So here you can see the music system, the AC, the steering column and the instrumentation, all of that has already been fitted in here, and it won't be happening at the other end. And of course you can see that there are different kinds of ACs. This is the manual AC, and then here you have one that's the electrical or the climate control system, depending on the model in question.
And that's where we come to the point about how more and more component makers like Tata Autocomp are getting into more integrated offerings. Finished products instead of basic parts, and engineering as well as R&D services too. Pretty cool. In fact, a lot of R&D goes into improving existing components too. Next, we headed to Tata Toyo, a joint venture company that makes radiators. And when we say radiators, they really know their stuff. That's because they make radiators for a small Tata Magic Iris, all the way up to giant 18-wheel tractor-trailer trucks too, and yes, all the passenger vehicles in between. A radiator is a fine network of very slim tubes that are created by first bending a flat aluminium strip into a round tube and flattening it to create a ribbon-like tube, which carries the engine coolant. These tubes are then put together with fins made from a slimmer serrated aluminium. These fins are folded in like a compressed accordion, and these are the ones that help conduct the engine's heat from the coolant inside the tubes to the atmosphere. This network is fused together at high temperatures to form one unit. And it's all then finished right here, including the little coolant tank at the end. Once a radiator is made, it is tested to ensure that there are no leaks and that it's working properly. Yep, each and every single one of them is tested, believe it or not. Wow. Tata Toyo is one of the many radiator suppliers in India, but it makes perhaps one of the widest range, as explained earlier, trucks, tractors, and for manufacturers like Mahindra, Tata, General Motors, to name a few.
So now you know what goes into making an actual radiator, the various components of it, and the interesting thing that you can have different radiators for different profiles or segments of vehicles which actually get manufactured in the same plant. This particular unit has the capacity to produce about 2 million radiators a year, so really massive in that sense. And like I said, everything from a Tata Ace all the way up to an Ashok Leyland heavy truck and all the passenger cars in between too. Now this particular radiator goes into a Chevy Tavera, and the reason I also wanted to show it to you is to talk about how things have changed. In just about an 8-9 year period, the guys here tell me, technology has moved leaps and bounds, because making these slimmer and lighter also helps improve the fuel efficiency of that given vehicle, remember, and which is where of course aluminum plays a big role. How much lighter, you may be thinking? Well, a radiator like this in about a decade or so period has actually become 50% lighter.
Now that is just incredible, isn't it? And now you know just how important that slim little unit in the front of your car is, right?
So it's the first time we've taken you inside a components plant, but that was just one little division, if you will, that you got a chance to see. There's plenty more that we want to show you still, but that's coming up on the other side of a break. In the meanwhile, our sector snapshot as we slip into that break. Keep watching. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for staying with CNB. Now, we delighted you with the Duke in the first segment of the show and also showed you how a car's dash and also its radiator are put together. Now we go straight back into the component space to yet another division of Tata Autocomp. This one is one that makes seats. Now, you might think that that's really boring and uninteresting, but I can tell you, I certainly learned something new when I visited this particular plant of Tata Johnson Controls.
To show you more of how components are made, back to plastics and high pressure injection molding. Unlike the interior panels, this is a tougher grade of plastic used to mold the bumpers of a vehicle. What you are seeing are bumpers of cars like the Fiat Linea, the Chevrolet Spark and the Tata Indigo Manza. These are then treated and finished by the same machine for that smooth finish before heading to be painted. The same robot can select and paint various paint shades depending on the model. And yes, it is an exact match to the car's body color. Every time. Awesome, eh? We now move on to the seats of a car. Here too, there are many things to consider. Cushion shape, seat height, backrest angle, headrest size, and loads more. Not that simple, eh? Each car maker wants to get the seats just right from a comfort point of view. And here at Tata Johnson Controls, the team doesn't just make the seats, but also actually helps design them. So let's start at that end of the process. The company has a slew of engineers who work on all the parameters when designing a seat, from the aesthetic design itself to the computer-aided design of the engineered components and then the finished products. This is not just about comfort or functionality, but also safety. But now let's go to where it all starts. The seat itself comprises a basic frame and the foam, which is all put together in this machine. The moving molds also help form the foam at high temperatures, like an oven. The foam then emerges in the right shape as per the specific model.
So call this a little childish of me, but I have to say, just standing here and watching this entire process is really fascinating. I mean, you have a little nozzle there that squirts out what really looks like cake batter, let's be honest. And it's like a industrial bakery of sorts, isn't it? In goes the batter, and then in just 7.5 minutes, out comes the cake. It's very even, and of course, it's been cooked all the way through.
As this process is completed, the other end of the plant also cuts and creates the seat covers. They vary in terms of material, in terms of the variant or model of the car. This machine first cuts the fabric in all the shapes that are needed to then stitch these covers together. Once the basic components for a finished seat are ready, the final seats are then put together. It's almost like an assembly line, isn't it? The platform with the seat moves forward, and at each station the seat is finished just a little bit further. The headrests are fitted in using a vacuum system which compresses the foam so that it gets into the rather well-fitting cover. Awesome! The seats are then packed in a certain sequence depending on the broadcast system from the car maker, and then these seats are sent in batches of 18 just in time and in sequence for the corresponding car on the assembly line. Besides the R&D on seats, the plant also houses testing facilities which run diagnostics on the products made here. This helps check on possible shortcomings, and improvements are constantly added to the process. The durability is also tested on, say, how a seat would be after a person gets in and out of a car multiple times, its reaction to impact during an accident, and of course also to weight. They also check for the durability of the fabrics and other materials, and also optimal seating angles and comfort points. Speaking of testing, Tata Autocomp also runs one of the country's rare engineering centers, which is hired out by various car makers to test their products. This includes the functioning of airbag systems. It's not just the deployment that's checked, mind you. The airbag systems can also be subjected to real-world temperatures and humidity in the climate chamber, and then tested to ensure real-life reliability as well. There are other tests here, like this machine which checks the durability of a glove box cover, and it's usually set to a 10,000 round cycle. Wow! A similar test also for the durability of AC vents.
So then that is a wrap on CNB of what's been definitely a very unusual episode. How did you like our look into the components space? It's nice in a way to know what goes into your vehicles, isn't it? Well, react to all of that. You know how to do that. In the meanwhile, I am going to scoot off. And as always, I'll say it. Please wear your helmets. Please wear your seatbelts.